Analytics are great, but don't let them be the foundation on which you play fantasy football. They're best utilized as a peripheral tool only.
Tyler Boyd's dip in production last year better correlates with Andy Dalton being off the field than it does with A.J. Green being off the field, despite public perception.
You can't watch just highlight film because highlight film only shows the good things. Watch the player's actual game tape because you see the good and the bad.
In 7 games in 2018, where all 3 starting Rams receivers were healthy, Brandon Cooks led the trio in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and total PPR points by a considerable margin.
Back from COVID and better than ever. Mark Wimkin, Chris McConnell, the RotoBros Fantasy Football Podcast. We are back. Back in the saddle, buddy. Like, it feels good. It's been a long time. And I know everybody's excited, but now it's time to crank it back up. We're getting back into this 2021 season. Dynasty drafts, our Dynasty rookie drafts still going on. A lot of them are over. Redrafts kicking in. Best ball, we've been in the middle of that. A lot of stuff going on. But, I mean, the whole COVID thing threw a wrench into everything, man. And, hey, we survived. Everybody survived. So, I'm going to kick it to you.
That seemed kind of insensitive.
That's a little, okay. Anyway, Mark, how are you?
Mix. Oh, God. The liberals are going to get you for that one, man. I'm doing great. And I kind of wish this was a live stream because I really wish people could see this big, giant smile on my face. I'm just happy to be recording again. I'm happy to be talking about football again. And we've been talking about football for months in the Discord. I mean, if you're in the RotoBros Discord, we've been drafting best balls since early May. We like to invade lobbies together on Underdog. I've even gotten McConnell to get involved in best ball. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
True story. Yeah. Best ball. I've always enjoyed best ball, but obviously having a partner that's obsessed with it, and a lot of, people in the Discord, getting involved in it also, obviously helps, somebody's interest. If there's a subject, that you're trying to get into, it helps when a lot of your friends, a lot of people that you interact with all the time are also into it. It helps keep you interested. So best ball's been great. So that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, speaking of the Discord, look, if you guys are not, a lot of you listening may already be in the Discord. You may have heard of it. But if you're not and you've never heard of it, it's time to it's 2021. It's time to get with the times. Get with the RotoBros Fantasy Advice Chat on Discord. It's a blast. You guys are going to love it. We cover everything in regards to fantasy sports. We've even got channels. We've got a channel for investments. We've got a channel for betting. We've got a channel for just regular non-sports related talk. We've got it all. So it's really the perfect place to hang out, talk sports, talk fantasy sports, talk whatever. And you can find that. You can join us there. Just go to patreon.com/RotoBros. You formerly RotoBros FF. We decided to kind of make it a little bit more simplistic for you guys. So patreon.com/RotoBros. Definitely check it out. We've got a silver membership, a gold membership. Check it out. See which level you prefer. But each membership will get you entry into the RotoBros Advice Chat. Again, on Discord. So definitely check that out. You guys will not regret that. It's it's 24/7, 365 party, essentially. Just the best. It's fantasy sports' hidden gem, the best hidden gem in fantasy sports. So, Mark, look, there's been a lot. This has been a big. We got a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff that we could have thrown into this episode. The Aaron Rodgers thing and Jordan Love, is he ready? Cam Akers, our love for Kyle Pitts, that's going to be in here as well. But the big offseason news, I think, that's sort of trumped the Aaron Rodgers fiasco in the NFL is Julio Jones being traded. A lot of people thought that maybe it might be Matt Ryan. And, I'm in Atlanta, so Atlanta Sports Talk was talking about, is it going to be Matt Ryan? Is it going to be Julio? Is it going to be either one of them? Well, come to find out after the draft, Falcons couldn't sign the draft picks. So they had to do something. And they didn't draft a quarterback, so that told you that former Titans offensive coordinator, now Falcons head coach, Arthur Smith, in the driver's seat, Terry Fontenot as the GM coming over from the Saints, they believe in Matt Ryan for the next year or two. And so they decided Julio Jones is going to be the odd man out. And apparently this was, both parties had known about this for a long time. Julio is now a Titan. And so for me, in real life, I really didn't understand the trade as much for the Titans, but for fantasy, I guess it's sort of, it makes a whole lot more sense if you like are a Ryan Tannehill owner in Dynasty, or you're targeting Ryan Tannehill in redraft. It makes a lot more sense, and it makes Ryan Tannehill a lot more attractive. But you're an AJ Brown guy. Like, we're all AJ Brown people, but you love AJ Brown more than almost anybody I know. How does this affect the outlook for AJ Brown? Does it really affect it at all for you, an AJ Brown fanatic?
It has to. I mean, when you take into account the hierarchy of targets in Tennessee now, Julio Jones is going to command a significant target share, and people can argue that he's past his prime. I don't buy into that. He was still extremely efficient when he was on the field last year. He was every bit as efficient as Calvin Ridley was, if not more efficient on like a per route run and per target basis. So there's still no doubt in my mind that Julio Jones is still a top 12 receiver in the NFL, more so for real life than for fantasy, because he's now going to have to compete with, in my opinion, the best receiver he's ever had to compete with 4 targets. And that's not a knock on Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is a baller, but AJ Brown is that prototypical athletic, freakish alpha wide receiver that can just win in any aspect on the field, whether it be running crisp routes or just using his raw strength and athleticism to win off the line. And he's just so dynamic. So while I do believe you have to bump AJ Brown, I think it's as simple as really just swapping Calvin Ridley and AJ Brown in your rankings. There's still no outcome for me where AJ Brown isn't worth a second round pick on underdog in redraft, and his dynasty value at 23 years old, it hasn't gone anywhere for me. He is still my dynasty wide receiver 1. Really all this means for me with Julio coming to Tennessee, just based on the law of conservation of targets, like he's going, instead of having 150 plus targets in his range of outcomes, his target ceiling is probably closer to 125, 130. But this is all dependent on how much Tennessee can throw. I mean, we've been talking a ton about ranges of outcomes in the Discord and what has to happen for certain outcomes to hit. And for AJ Brown to finish as the wide receiver 1 in fantasy, Tennessee now with Julio Jones there is probably going to have to throw significantly more than they ever planned to. So while he's pretty much out of the running for the wide receiver 1 on the year, I still don't see why he couldn't finish as a top 5 or top 12 fantasy wide receiver. So if you're finding AJ Brown in the 3rd round, that's still a value. Value-based drafting is still very much alive. So when you're getting Brown in the 3rd round, you can't complain.
Yeah, and like I did in the Discord, I did we have a hot takes channel, and I posted like a pre-training camp, pre-serious injury, because someone's going to have a serious injury, or a couple people are going to have season-ending injuries, and it's going to throw any rankings you have right now into the spin cycle. But I posted, it doesn't really mean much because they're going to change. But it's like an early pre-training camp rankings, and right now I have Julio is wide receiver 19, and I have AJ Brown as wide receiver 17. And I have, guys like Godwin and Evans and Jamar Chase and Cooper and Thielen and Lamb and Allen ahead of those guys. And I don't really think anything like that. I don't even think that's egregious at all. Because I think where you and I differ on this a little bit is the fact that, well, and real quick, we both agree that it's not really going to be some sort of death blow to AJ Brown's fantasy value. It's not. Like, is he going to be a mid to high wide receiver 1? No, not in my opinion. Because I do think Julio is going to take a significant amount of targets from that. And I say that because this is where you and I think differ a little bit. I don't think the Titans are going to throw all that much more. I think now that they have Julio, when they do throw, they are going to be, I don't want to say more efficient, but I think they are going to, they can be more efficient when they throw. But I don't think all of a sudden Ryan Tannehill is going to turn into, Matt Ryan or Kyler Murray or, Aaron Rodgers. I think they're going to be a more efficient and a tougher offense to cover when they do throw, rather than when they run. And I think the running game is still going to be obviously it's the entire team, the entire offense is built around Derrick Henry in that running game. The offensive line is still great. Derrick Henry is still great. I don't think they're going to get away from that, even though Arthur Smith is no longer the offensive coordinator there. Derrick Henry's really never skipped a beat since he, got that starting job from DeMarco Murray all those years ago. And it's not like Derrick Henry is 29, 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like, he's still in the prime of his career. So he's still got probably 2 to 3 great fantasy years left of being that workhorse until we start to see maybe a little bit of a breakdown. And he doesn't get hurt either. So that's another thing. Like, you can feed this guy 27 carries a game almost, and he just doesn't get hurt. So I feel like the philosophy for that offense is not going to change much. But is Ryan Tannehill going to throw 50 more times than he did last year? Yeah, I think so. But is he going to throw 150 to 200 more times? No, I don't think so. But I do think when he does throw, they're going to be a tougher team to cover for those defenses. So, a couple years ago when they played Kansas City in that AFC Championship game, they just couldn't keep up with Kansas City. Like, they just couldn't stop them, and they couldn't outscore them because their bread and butter was controlling the clock. Well, they can't control the clock because they couldn't run the football like they wanted to because they're down in this hole to Kansas City. So I think now they can throw it a little bit better and keep up with teams like Kansas City. And so I don't feel like they're as one-dimensional as they once were. Not that they were incredibly one-dimensional, previously, but they're even better in that passing game now. So look, I feel like if they keep the same philosophy, I think we're going to see 2 solid wide receiver 2 fantasy seasons for both guys. Is that a bad thing? No. I'd love to have AJ Brown as my wide receiver 2 on my team as opposed to, my wide receiver 1. So if I can couple Calvin Ridley, a guy like Calvin Ridley as my wide receiver 1 with AJ Brown as my wide receiver 2. So I don't hate it at all for fantasy purposes.
But with where you have AJ Brown ranked, if you've got him ranked, you said wide receiver 17, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's some I could see, wide receiver 14, 15, but I don't see him being really any worse than wide receiver 18. So we're looking at like top end wide receiver 2 down to low or like mid wide receiver 2. That's, I think, his range of outcomes is for AJ Brown. I don't think any of that is really egregious. I could totally see any of the guys I have ranked ahead of him finishing higher than him.
AJ Brown commanded a target share of 25.8% last year. Ryan Tannehill attempted 480 passes. So are you telling me that AJ Brown's target share is more likely to decrease from last year as opposed to increase? You probably have him projected to lose target share and not just raw targets, right?
I think I think he sees a little less targets than he did, even though Ryan Tannehill's probably going to throw 50, 60 more passes than he did last year. So, and who knows, he may not. They don't have a reliable pass catching running back on that team that they use all the time. So targets probably not a lot of targets are going to go to that area. And what's Anthony Ferguson going to do? Like, is he going to be? He's not going to command that many more targets than Jonnu Smith did, right? So, I don't think he's going to lose a whole lot, but I do think he is going to lose a little bit because I think Julio Jones is going to command. It's not like they're adding, David Moore, to the team as their wide receiver. It's Julio Jones. So, I do think Julio is going to command more targets. And I would not even be surprised if Julio surpasses AJ Brown in total target share, if, of course, he can stay healthy. And that's going to be the thing with Julio in real life. Like, he's always playing with an injury. Now, he seems to play through it, but he comes off the field, and that can be a problem because if he's coming off the field due to injury, now you're back in the same spot you were without Julio Jones on the roster. So
where I stand on the whole thing is you look at what Corey Davis was able to accomplish last year. He commanded a 23% target share of his own. So you've got AJ Brown and Corey Davis accounting for roughly 50% of the target market in Tennessee. If you're projecting them to pass roughly the same amount, I won't be. I will be projecting about 75 to 100 more pass attempts, mainly because the Tennessee Titans defense hasn't improved. It's bad. And I think Tennessee is a really good candidate to lose a lot more of those one-score games that they managed to win last year. They won 11 games in 2020, and 7 of those games were one-score games. So they got very, very lucky in the variance department for winning one score games. So basically where I'm going with this is I don't think it's crazy to assume Julio Jones and A.J. Brown can both command target shares of around 25, 27%, mainly because as in terms of just raw talent, there's nobody even close to them, to those two on this football team. So I think they're going to hog probably 50% of the target market. And that's why I can't bump A.J. Brown down. Yeah, I can't bump A.J. Brown much further down in my rankings than where I had him. I did have him as the overall wide receiver 1. I was willing to draft him over Tyreek Hill on Underdog before this trade. I wasn't because I didn't have to. Tyreek Hill is a first-round pick, whereas A.J. Brown was a second-round pick. But A.J. Brown is now slipping into the third round. And because I didn't drop him in my rankings that much, this offense was efficient last year. The passing offense was efficient last year. Ryan Tannehill ranked 6th in yards per attempt. He ranked 2nd. It was either 2nd or 3rd in yards per attempt when he took the job over 2 years ago. So he's been nothing but an efficient passer. So there's no doubt in my mind that Ryan Tannehill is unable to support 2 wide receiver 1s in fantasy. Probabilities dictate that one of these guys will probably end up as a wide receiver 1 and the other one will end up as a wide receiver 2. And given where A.J. Brown is at in his career at 24 years old, there's no doubt in my mind he is still the alpha on this football team. And this gives Julio Jones an opportunity to act as something a little different than what he's used to. He no longer
like Roddy White did. Act like what Roddy White did for him in Atlanta. Be that veteran, that dynamic elite veteran presence across from the young up and coming wide receiver, like Roddy White did for Julio. Julio can do that with it. Now Julio's, AJ Brown's obviously more established as an elite wide receiver in the league than Julio was when he came in, playing with Cameron. But I see what you mean. He can pretty much do the same thing. And for those that don't know, Underdog, real quick, Mark, because Underdog's sort of a lot newer to the best ball world for a lot of people. So a lot of people may not know what that is. Underdog is in my opinion the best ball format that has ever been created. Really, I think the app and the site, I think they're great. And so if you're a best ball fan, definitely check out Underdog. So when we say Underdog, that's what we're referring to.
Were you ever actively drafting Josh Reynolds at all before this trade?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely.
I was totally drafting him in best ball. And again, just based on the hierarchy of targets in Tennessee, I think he was worth drafting. It's a lot more difficult to justify now. He hasn't really broken out in the NFL. His path to volume got significantly more difficult with Julio. So I think it's fair to assume you can't really draft Josh Reynolds now. I think you can still draft Anthony Ferkser in a best ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that. And if you want to try to, if you're maybe in a 2 tight end league, and look, the 2 tight end leagues, those are the real tight end premium leagues. So if you're playing tight end premium league that starts 2 tight ends and your second or third guy is Anthony Ferkser, not going to argue with you, but you don't want him as your number 1 guy. And in a 1 tight end league, you definitely, he may actually even go undrafted. And speaking of draft positions and where we're taking these guys, AJ, just so everybody knows, in redraft PPR, AJ Brown is still going as wide receiver 7. He's going 2 spots after DK Metcalf and 1 spot after Calvin Ridley, right before Keenan Allen and Michael Thomas. That I think is, Michael Thomas, it's a criminal ADP at wide receiver 9 in my opinion. And then Julio Jones is being drafted as wide receiver 13 in redraft seasonal. So for PPR, so they're both going essentially as wide receiver 1s in a way. So, and these are straight from Fantasy Football Calculator, the ADP. So these are updated daily. So this is going to be interesting to see kind of how this sort of pans out. So you don't look to be alone in this, Ryan Tannehill possible QB1, sort of dance. And so, like I said,
I got a question for you. What's the difference between DK Metcalf and AJ Brown for 2021? Why do you have DK Metcalf ranked as wide receiver 6, but AJ Brown is wide receiver 18?
Because in my opinion, I believe that, first of all, that I think DK Metcalf has a higher ceiling and is a better wide receiver. Number 2 is the Russell Wilson effect. Number 3 is the fact that Shane Waldron is their new offensive coordinator, and he's going to speed things up on this offense. And this offense is going to be a quicker hitting offense. This is not going to be a slow run first offense anymore.
Seattle wasn't slow last year. Seattle played fast.
Well, they're going to be even faster this year.
Dude, they were one of the fastest. They were one of the fastest offenses in the NFL last year. I mean, when they were allowed to throw. My argument here, listen, hear me out. My argument here is Brian Schottenheimer got fired because he wanted to throw the ball more and let Russ cook. This is public knowledge that Pete Carroll parted ways with Brian Schottenheimer because Schottenheimer was trying to force a regime shift. He wanted Russell Wilson to do what he's good at. That pissed Pete Carroll off, and there was a disagreement in where they wanted that offense to go, and Brian Schottenheimer got fired. There's a new offensive coordinator in Seattle because they want to return to running the football, and they want to be what Tennessee was last year. So I think there's a discrepancy here in your ADPs with DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, and I just wanted to point that out because if anything, I think they should both be ranked right in that 10 to 12 range. And you have DK Metcalf at 6, AJ Brown at 17, and I'm willing to make a bet with you here on these two wide receivers. Is what I'm saying.
DK, in my opinion, is going, and I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of people that disagree. So I honestly think you would be in a large minority between these two guys. DK is going to finish as the better fantasy receiver this year. In PPR,
I'm willing to make a bet with you on that,
and
we'll definitely
put
my money where my mouth is here.
We will definitely discuss that because I'm happy to take your money on that because DK Metcalf is going to also catch a lot more deep passes than or deep passes for touchdowns than AJ Brown will. I think Julio may end up being more of that deep threat than AJ Brown was, and I think that's a good idea for them. Let AJ Brown be the possession, go across the middle chain mover, and have Julio run more deeper routes. But that's neither here nor there. I look, Russell Wilson's a much better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. And not only that, Tyler Lockett is playing across from DK Metcalf, not Julio Jones. So Julio Jones to me is going to command more targets than Tyler Lockett is, and so that's another reason. So there's plenty of reasons that DK would be, ranked 9 or 10 spots ahead of AJ Brown. And again, it's one of the reasons is because I do think Seattle's going to throw just as much than they did. Their offensive line has gotten better, so they're going to be more efficient throwing the football, I believe. And Russ is going to have more time to throw the football, which I think is extremely underappreciated, undervalued, and underthought of when we discuss this type of stuff. Now, real quick though, we've gone on and we've kind of beaten a dead horse here with the Tennessee part of the trade, but where we haven't touched on and a target share argument we need to talk about is in Atlanta. So leaving Atlanta and vacating 213 targets along with Julio Jones' departure, we've got to figure out where are those targets going to go. Now, obviously, Kyle Pitts drafted as the number 4 overall pick, tight end. He's going to be playing more wide receiver than tight end. He's already showing that's already happening in minicamp. They are absolutely peppering him with targets. Now, Calvin Ridley's also underwent foot surgery, so he's going to take a month or two to recover from that. So that could be part of that, why that's going on in minicamp. But Kyle Pitts is not George Kittle when it comes to blocking, so he's not going to be asked to block as much. So where are all these vacated targets going to go? Obviously, Calvin Ridley turns into the wide receiver 1 on this team. That's not going to be disputed by anybody. Kyle Pitts, could fight. In my opinion, is going to be a high-end tight end 1. That's, I think, something that you and I may disagree on ultimately. But again, we got to look at Russell Gage. And we got to look at a couple of these other guys that could come up behind Russell Gage because Christian Blake is no longer on the team. So that's going to free up, some opportunity for a lot of guys that are even behind Russell Gage to sort of fill in and try to break out from a real life perspective at the wide receiver position, because I still think they're going to throw a lot. I don't know how good this defense is going to be, and I know a lot of people are like, well, do we really expect Arthur Smith to change what he was doing in Tennessee and just come to Atlanta, start throwing the football like they were last year? Well, Matt Ryan, in my opinion, Matt Ryan's a better passing quarterback than Ryan Tannehill, and you don't have Derrick Henry. Like, I like Mike Davis, but Mike Davis is not Derrick Henry. Okay, so I don't think the philosophy is necessarily going to be the same. So for me, I'm all over Kyle Pitts, but Russell Gage is a guy that I think is going to be really undervalued in a lot of redraft leagues going into this season.
As far as Russell Gage and Olamide Zaccheaus are concerned, I'm drafting both of them at the end of best balls. Russell Gage, you have to draft quite a bit earlier. He's going around the 11th, 12th round, but Olamide Zaccheaus is still almost free. I think he could be the starting slot flanker. I mean, we could see full-time slot for Olamide Zaccheaus. His target premium could be a little better. True catch rate could be a lot better. But the only bad thing about Zaccheaus' profile when he was a prospect is that he went undrafted. He went undrafted, and he probably shouldn't have. He's a little undersized, but that's typically stuff I don't care about. He was highly productive on special teams at Virginia, commanded target shares of 27 and 34% his last 2 years in college. I think there's something there with Zaccheaus. I think he's a good football player, and that's why I'm kind of more inclined to just wait until the end of the draft, redraft or best ball, and take Olamide Zaccheaus, but neither of these guys should ever result in zeros unless the Falcons bring in somebody to compete for targets with the wide receivers. We can talk about Kyle Pitts in a minute because obviously this trade is a huge boost for his value. And I've been pretty outspoken on Kyle Pitts. Like, he's a tight end. I don't like drafting tight ends super early in rookie drafts. I don't like drafting rookie tight ends super high in redraft leagues. I tend to think rookie tight ends get a little overvalued. Like, if you're asking me right now to pick between Kyle Pitts and TJ Hawkinson for best ball and redraft, I'm taking TJ Hawkinson every time.
In redraft, yes, and like I've made no bones about it. TJ Hawkinson's my tight end 2 this year in redraft. So like or for 2021 in total. So like I'm fine with that. Now in a rookie draft in a dynasty league, it's going to be a little bit different for me because again, a lot of people are, and I even have friends who are Falcons fans, like fellow Falcons that are like, oh, why are we taking Kyle Pitts number 4? He's not he's a tight end. You don't take a tight end. But the thing about it is he's a tight end in name only. You know what I mean? Like, he's a tight end in name only. He's not going to be sitting there playing the Rob Gronkowski inline tight end role. Like, he is going to be playing the Jimmy Graham role that Jimmy was playing. He's going to be that almost full-time joker tight end that Jimmy was playing in New Orleans all those years ago when he was dominating the league and people were drafting him in the first round as the tight end 1 off the board in fantasy drafts. And look, it was a weekly positional advantage for anybody, going tight end. It was Tony Gonzalez and it was Jimmy Graham. And so when you saw Jimmy Graham's production, it was hard to argue it. Now, it was prime time Drew Brees and Sean Payton. It wasn't, probably final 2-3 years of his career, Matt Ryan and, Arthur Smith. But regardless, Kyle Pitts is a tight end prospect that, unlike we've literally never seen before. And he's essentially Calvin Johnson playing the tight end position. But again, he's tight end in name only. He's going to be playing on the outside. So we were talking about slots and where, Zaccheaus is going to play. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Gage, for the most part, is still going to man that slot role just like he did last year. 71 of his 108 targets from last year, Gage's targets last year, came from the slot. I don't think that's really going to change all that much going into this season. I think Zaccheaus could be more of that, fourth wide receiver, more of that F wide receiver, if you will. And I get that, and I think I like him, and I think he's a fine depth piece. But I don't know, like in redraft, I don't know that he's really going to be worth a bench spot when you're talking about a seasonal redraft league where you're looking for that, weekly production. I just don't think we're going to get that. In best ball, he's a guy that I think I can get on board with a little bit more because you can get him so much, like, significantly later than Gage. But yeah, look, I think these targets are mainly, obviously, a ton of them are going to go to Calvin Ridley. He's not going to lose that. He may even gain some target share for the hell of it. But Kyle Pitts,
I just don't know how Calvin Ridley can gain more targets. He saw 143 last year. His target share and his dominator were off the charts. I just don't see how he can command a lot more targets than he already did. And that's kind of why I'm looking at the hierarchy for this team's target market from essentially Kyle Pitts down. I mean,
Well,
like I said, I did swap Calvin Ridley and AJ Brown in my rankings. Calvin Ridley, I don't see where it's going to go because he was just being force fed the ball so much last year. I think we saw a lot closer to his true ceiling last year than what we could see this year. And that's why I'm as interested in Gage, Zacchaeus, and maybe Kyle Pitts if I can get him somewhere at a value in best ball.
Yeah, my thing, I look at it and I'm like looking at the target leaders from last year, and obviously Diggs led the way. DeAndre Hopkins second, Allen Robinson, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, and then you had Deontay Johnson as top 6 right ahead of Calvin Ridley with one more target. So, like, do I think Calvin Ridley can hit, go from 143 to like 145? Like, I'm not saying he's going to get 170 targets, right? Or like the 166 that Steph did last year. I don't think he's going to do that. But could he stay around that 145? Yeah, I really do think he could. But I mean, is it likely that he goes to like 135? I mean, this is assuming he plays all the games. 135, and again, we have an extra game, by the way. So we got to take that into account as well. He could totally see like 150. But again, it's going to depend on how healthy Kyle Pitts stays and how good Kyle Pitts is. We already know he's going to step on that field day one and be one of the biggest, maybe the biggest matchup nightmare for defenses in the entire NFL as a rookie. Like, that's pretty incredible. But again, we see typically with tight ends, when you're at least playing the traditional tight end spot, there's a little bit of a learning curve. But the fact that Pitts is going to be playing more of a receiver role, I do think that learning curve is going to shorten a lot more than a lot of people normally would. But look, I'm all over Gage. I don't want him starting in my redraft league, but I think like even first wide receiver off the bench, I think I might be happy with that, to be quite honest with you.
I'd be comfortable with that too. We're both in agreement that this is a huge downgrade for Matt Ryan, right? Like, this is bad for Matt Ryan from a fantasy perspective, almost to the point where you can't draft him in one quarterback leagues. He's pretty much super flex only for me as my QB2. I would not be drafting him as my starting quarterback in a 1 QB league.
I don't know about that. Like, I think I would.
You'd be getting lapped by the dudes that have Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You will be conceding like 150 plus fantasy points to those guys if you're starting Matt Ryan.
Well, I don't necessarily think so. I still think Matt's going to put up fine QB fantasy numbers.
Matt Ryan,
he's going to go
Matt Ryan or Joe Burrow.
Oh, I will take Joe Burrow.
You take Joe Burrow. All right, Matt Ryan or Trevor Lawrence?
I'll take Matt Ryan.
I'll take Trevor Lawrence. Jalen Hurts or Matt Ryan?
Well, I have Jalen Hurts currently as QB, let's see, it's 14, I think. Yeah, QB 14. Well, actually, I have Matt Ryan QB 13, Jalen Hurts QB 14. So I think it's going to be close with those two.
You got to switch that, man.
That's a coin blast.
You have to switch that.
Look, both of them.
Matt Ryan does not have QB1, and Matt Ryan does not have overall QB1 in his range of outcomes. He doesn't have it. Jalen Hurts does. You have to switch it.
Jalen Hurts overall QB1 mark. Come on, like this is
it's in his range. It's comfortably in his range of outcomes. If he plays all 17 games, how many yards is he rushing for? How many rushing touchdowns is he scoring?
He's not. His offensive line isn't good enough for that. Like they're going to be losing.
His offensive line is fine.
This is going to be.
The offensive line was hurt last year. That's why Carson Wentz had no protection. His offensive line is fine if it's healthy.
Well, they're coming into the season as ranked 17th in the OLA, so it's a pretty mediocre offensive line. It's not great or good by any stretch of the imagination.
Where does Atlanta's rank?
That's a good question.
Atlanta's ranks at like 20th, and Matt Ryan isn't mobile. Jalen Hurts can at least get himself out of trouble. But we're talking football theory here, and I want to talk fantasy football. You cannot sit there with a straight face and tell me that Matt Ryan has a higher fantasy ceiling than Jalen Hurts this year. It's wrong.
I'm not saying. Well, hold on. Now, I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts' fantasy ceiling isn't higher than Matt Ryan's. That's not what I'm saying.
In a 1 QB league, you're going for ceiling. In a 1 QB league, you're not looking for stability. You need a ceiling.
Not
in a 2 quarterback league,
that's not true. Not always. I
completely disagree with you.
Just because I am Jalen Hurts is going as QB 10 right now. He's going ahead of Joe Burrow. He's going ahead of Matt.
Value.
And these are 1 QB leagues. ahead of Joe Burrow, ahead of Matthew Stafford, ahead of Matt Ryan, ahead of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins going with QB 16. Okay, so no. Here's the thing. I'm not telling you that it's a crime that Jalen Hurts is going ahead of these guys. I'm not taking him ahead of Joe or Stafford or Kirk Cousins. Solidly, I'm not taking him ahead of those guys. But I'm not telling you it's a crime that he's going. But what I am saying is that in one QB leagues, what do we always like to do? What is typically the smart thing to do at quarterback? Wait. Because if you're telling me that I could get Kirk Cousins at 16, who just had, or in my opinion, probably the rookie of the year, who should have been, well, I won't say should have been rookie of the year because Justin Herbert is rightfully so the best rookie, but easily the breakout rookie wide receiver of the year last year, and nothing but consistent Adam Thielen, and Kyle Rudolph's finally gone. So you got Irv Smith, who's got a much higher ceiling than Kyle Rudolph. You still got the offensive line. You still got Dalvin Cook. Like, do you really think that I want to waste a significantly higher draft pick and draft Jalen Hurts over Kirk Cousins, who is likely still going to be a QB1 in fantasy? Yeah, I'm taking Kirk Cousins if it means that I can add in an additional flex spot or my second wide receiver spot. If it means that I can add a rock solid wide receiver, a borderline wide receiver 1 as my wide receiver 2. I'm not passing on that just so I can have Jalen Hurts at quarterback when I can wait and get a Kirk Cousins or someone like that.
But that doesn't justify ranking him below those guys.
He's right below Matt Ryan. It's not like Matt Ryan is QB 6 and Jalen Hurts is 16.
But he shouldn't be below them. I'm just telling you, it's probably a process mistake, especially in a 1 QB league. Because in a 1 QB league where QBs are open season, you don't have to take one in the first round. You should be going for ceiling because you have a much broader range of quarterbacks to select from. You don't have guys taking Mark. Yes, all the time.
No, because
I was going to bring this up later in the show. In a 1 QB league, that's where you draft guys that have astronomical ceilings. In a super flex league, you need to be worried more about floor because you need stability. I would be taking Kirk Cousins as my QB2. I would be taking Kirk Cousins or Matt Ryan as my QB2 in a super flex league. I'm fine with that. But in a 1 quarterback league where you are trying to find a quarterback that could score you 400 fantasy points, there's no excuse taking Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, or maybe Joe Burrow, because he could throw the football 700 times this year. But there's no excuse for taking Kirk Cousins or Matt Ryan or ranking them ahead of Jalen Hurts.
That is not true. Because if I am... No, it's absolutely not. Because if do I want Jalen Hurts as my... Now, you probably are going to say yes to this, but I'll ask the audience, and you guys can answer in your cars or at home, wherever you're listening. Do I want Jalen Hurts as my quarterback? And forget about real life for a minute. Because I feel like we think about Kirk Cousins in real life and Matt Ryan in real life. And it sort of like gives them this bad image, because everybody's like, ugh, Kirk Cousins in real life. But in reality, like, Kirk Cousins is a quarterback 1 in fantasy, or at the very worst, like QB 13, right outside. And last year, again, how many times has he already finished as a QB 1? Like, like his outlook is no worse. It's even better than it was last year. But that's beside the point. Do I want to draft Jalen Hurts significantly higher at quarterback and have him as my quarterback and end up with, let's say I need a wide receiver, but I decide to take Jalen Hurts significantly higher, okay, as my QB1, and pass on a wide receiver like Adam Thielen or Chris Godwin, or maybe in the right league where he falls a little bit more than he should, CeeDee Lamb? Or would I rather have Kirk Cousins significantly later in a 1 QB league and pair him with Adam Thielen and have that Minnesota stack, or Godwin, or Lamb, or even Tyler Lockett, or somebody like? Yeah, I'd want that. I don't want to have to pair. I would rather do that than pair Jalen Hurts with Juju Smith-Schuster. Sorry about it. Like, I'm not going to apologize for that. In 1 QB leagues, like, I'm sorry. You've also got to think of the value. This is the whole reason why people tell you in 1 QB leagues, do not overdraft a quarterback. Wait so late. Like, look, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the value there, Mark. I'm thinking of the value there.
And Jalen Hurts what's Jalen Hurts ADP in redraft? QB10,
right now,
you said?
right now his ADP, is QB 10 in redraft.
QB 10, and that's roughly what round?
We're looking at the 79th overall pick, which 79 divided by 12. What's my math there?
Somewhere in the 7th and 8th round. I would take Jalen Hurts there only because, number one, overall quarterback one is in his range of outcomes. There is several outcomes where he is Lamar Jackson / Kyler Murray.
See,
he was an incredibly efficient passer in college. He was an incredibly efficient passer against SEC competition at age 18, only got better every single year. And of course, the dynamism. He's fast, he's mobile, he's going to run. It only took him 3 starts to rush for 100 yards. He can do it. His ceiling is so much higher than you're projecting. And I'm not projecting his ceiling at as QB 14. That's not what I'm projecting here. I am projecting, in my opinion, a more than likely outcome, a borderline QB 1 or high end QB 2. That's what I'm projecting, and I think that's perfectly fair. Like if I'm projecting ceiling, maybe like I'm not saying QB 1, I'll go like QB 5 or 6, maybe absolute ceiling, but I'm not projecting ceiling when I do that, or else I would have Joe Burrow a lot higher than 11 and Russell Wilson a lot higher than 10 and Matthew Stafford higher than 9. Like I'm not doing that, but I get it. And I'm not saying, trust me, it's not that I don't like Jalen Hurts this year. I think Jalen Hurts is probably going to be fine as a fantasy QB. But I'm just not going to take in a 1 QB. I'm not going to take him over, Tom Brady. Tom Brady's going right ahead of him on average at QB 9. So there's that. There's obviously you have to account for I forget the word, but anyway, the differences in or maybe like range of outcomes in the draft. Like maybe Tom Brady falls 3 spots past Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Like you have to account for that. So I'm not taking him over Tom Brady. I'm not taking him personally over Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford. Am I taking him over Ryan Tannehill or Baker Mayfield? Fantasy-wise, Carson Wentz, Tua, yes. Trevor Lawrence, Ben Roethlisberger, yes. I'm taking him over those guys. So look, I guess it's just 2 different draft, and this is why the show's great because we're sort of forecasting in 2 different ways. But in 1 QB leagues, like I'm also taking into account that value and what I'm going to be able to get by waiting and getting Kirk Cousins significantly later. If I'm getting Kirk Cousins around later, I'm not worried about it. Fine, take Jalen Hurts over him. But like if I can get Kirk Cousins 4 or 5 rounds later, I'm going to do that. Kirk Cousins doesn't have the ceiling that I want in fantasy. Especially in a 1 quarterback league, I want to make sure the guy that is leading my team every week at quarterback has a 35 to 40 fantasy point ceiling. I just think Jalen Hurts is a lot more likely to produce games like that.
Okay, so you must like the Eagles this year. Like you've got to love the Eagles then this year, because I have them finishing. Obviously, it doesn't matter in real life. I have them finishing last in the division, but for fantasy, that doesn't mean anything. But you must love, all the Eagles. And I know I think you're higher than on Miles Sanders, a lot higher on Miles Sanders this year than I am. But if you love Jalen Hurts this much, then you've got to be a closet Eagles fan this year. I'd imagine.
I'm above consensus on all the Philadelphia Eagles for a number of reasons. One, they're going to be more competitive than they were last year. You can come up with any theory you want on why Carson Wentz was as bad as he was. The offensive line was injured. It was bad. He was under duress all the time and couldn't make plays under pressure. He was inaccurate. He was throwing inaccurately from a clean pocket. And this is something he's been doing since college. So I've got no explanation for that. I'm not interested in talking about Carson Wentz. It's so much more likely that Jalen Hurts ascends this offense back to what it once was. We've got different coaching staff. We've got Devonta Smith. Zach Ertz, one of the most inefficient pass catchers I think any of us have ever seen. He's going to be gone. He's working his way out of Philly. So I'm above consensus on all of the Eagles between Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, who I've been stacking with Jalen Hurts.
I'm higher on Jalen
on underdog.
I'm higher on Rager this year. I don't hate Devontae Smith either. I know I think I'm higher on Devontae Smith than you are. But God, I want all. I don't want really any Miles Sanders. I want all the Dallas Goedert. Like, give it all to me. Just give it to me. Because if I can get, in my opinion, who's going to be like tight end 6, tight end 5 on the year, I want that. I want all the Dallas Goedert that I can possibly handle. So I'm with you on Goddard.
It's safe to say that TJ Hawkinson is everybody's pick, including yours and mine. He's everyone's pick to be the next George Kittle or the next Darren Waller. Right next, like it's him and Kyle Pitts. But if I were to tell you that there was a massive tight end breakout this year, and it was neither TJ Hawkinson or Kyle Pitts, who would you guess that it was? Dallas Goedert.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. It'd be Dallas Goedert. Yeah.
100%. It would be Dallas Goedert. And
150%.
That's why I'm drafting him religiously on underdog. Yeah, and I'm stacking him with Jalen Hurts. I think he's a great piece to stack with Jalen Hurts. He's actually, I would prefer in a redraft league, best ball as well, obviously, because we love to stack in best ball. But in a redraft league, if I'm looking for some positive correlation with Jalen Hurts, I would be more inclined to aim for Dallas Goedert than one of his wide receivers, just because the probability that one of his wide receivers breaks out is already as high as it was. I would be willing to take one of the safer wide receivers where you have to draft somebody like Devonta Smith. I would rather take Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins or DJ Chark or Laviska Shenault just so I can get Dallas Goedert and just shoot for the absolute moon. If I'm already drafting Jalen Hurts, I'm drafting for ceiling. I'm gonna exacerbate that by pairing him with his tight end and just pray that we get the outcome where they both break out.
Yeah,
the NFC East.
That I don't disagree with you, but surely you don't like Jalen Hurts more than Daniel Jones, do you?
It's funny you say that because, like, if
Daniel Jones, Mark. Everybody loves Daniel Jones.
No, Daniel Jones sucks.
Not really.
I will never call him. I'll never call him Danny Dimes again as long as I live. Daniel Jones sucks. But in the NFC East, where they get to play the Cowboys twice, they get to play the Eagles twice, would it surprise you if Daniel Jones had a Mitchell Trubisky fantasy season, like that season Trubisky had in 2018, where he was a borderline QB1? Would it be the craziest thing you've ever seen?
No.
If Daniel Jones had a season where he scored 30 total touchdowns with Kenny Golladay there, Darius Slayton back, Kadarius Toney's a new weapon, Saquon Barkley back. It wouldn't be the craziest thing I've ever seen. And that's why I think in a 1 QB league, I am comfortable drafting Daniel Jones and throwing him, if the bench is deep enough to account for a second quarterback. I would draft Daniel Jones and stash him on my bench and just pray for a breakout because it's in his range of outcomes with this supporting cast that he has.
Yeah, and let me just go ahead and say it. And I'll challenge anybody to find one. Name me a better supporting cast in the entire NFL. Daniel Jones has the best overall supporting. Let me just go down these names. Absolutely.
No, he doesn't.
Absolutely. So you got Daniel Jones. Okay. Oh, it's absolutely not Denver. It's Saquon Barkley, something that Denver doesn't even have. And I love Javonte Williams, but God knows they don't have anything close to Saquon Barkley. Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph in the red zone. Kyle Rudolph is going to be on the field so many times, and I think that's going to help Daniel Jones as well in the red zone. Kyle Rudolph, Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton, Kenny Golladay. Like, that is insane. That's it. Now this is it. Daniel Jones, look, I still love him, but both of my guys, Daniel and Carson, they got to get it together, and this is the year to do it because they both have some of the best supporting casts in the entire NFL, and if they can't do it this year, then they're done. Then their time as starting quarterbacks is over in this league, especially Daniel Jones. So do I think, from a fantasy standpoint, do I think Daniel Jones is going to be a QB1? Absolutely not. Do I think he's going to be top 15? Probably not, right? Can he be? Absolutely. Range of outcomes? Yes. I could see him as like a top 10 quarterback in fantasy where just finally clicks, and that would be I would absolutely drag you through the hot coals in the Discord if that happens. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But I do like Daniel Jones, his chances more than he ever has, because now he'll have the best offensive line he's been working with. Hopefully, pray to God, Saquon can stay healthy. All of these huge weapons that he has, like, you just don't have any excuses, man. Like, I should be making the Pro Bowl, but under center for that team on offense. Like, it's just, to me, there's a lot to like about Daniel Jones, but again, I think it's going to be the Giants and the Eagles fighting for like the basement in that division. But from a fantasy perspective, I think we could see a lot of great things out of the Giants as a whole this year.
Have you looked at their schedule?
I have not.
Don't bother looking it up. You haven't looked at his schedule. He gets to play the Cowboys twice. He gets to play the Falcons. He gets to play the Saints. He gets to play the Panthers. He gets to play the entire AFC West, meaning the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers. Like, it's shootout city. It's shootout city, which is beautiful for fantasy if he can carry that supporting cast. If he can carry Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton. Dude, I'm not here to argue with you on how good his supporting cast is. While I think Denver's is better, while I think Kansas City's is better, while I might even argue that something like Tampa Bay's is better, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you that his supporting cast isn't phenomenal. It is almost up to the caliber that, say, Baker Mayfield had last year, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Daniel Jones have a Baker Mayfield-like season. Not necessarily QB1, but that situational QB1 where he can have spike weeks. Spike weeks were not in his range of outcomes last year. I was losing so much money starting him in DFS, lost a bunch of money on him in best ball, and that's why I'm a little trigger shy with him this year. But
you got that
we
PTSD.
all know that
you got that.
we know that PTSD is bad process, and we need to work through it. And that's why Daniel Jones in best ball leagues or in one quarterback leagues, I think he is as optimal a draft pick as they come. I'm less inclined to take him in a super flex league because I want more stability at QB2. I'm more inclined to take Kirk Cousins or Matt Ryan in a super flex league or Ryan Tannehill, but in a 1 QB league where the sky could be the limit for Daniel Jones, who's got rushing upside, who's got mobility, who's got an established alpha, who's got a perimeter deep threat that literally adds yards per attempt onto his efficiency because he's got somebody that he can throw the ball and have someone run underneath. It's all upside. I'm more inclined to take Daniel Jones where he carries less risk. He's not going to carry as much risk stashed on my bench in a 1 QB league as he will if I draft him in the 4th or 5th round of a super flex league. So that's where I'm at with Daniel Jones. But that schedule is so appealing, facing against the AFC West, the NFC South, gets to face the Cowboys and the Eagles twice apiece. That's the case for Daniel Jones.
The Cowboys, though, I'm going to be honest with you. Cowboys defense got mean. Like, I'm Micah Parsons, man. Like, that dude's no joke. He was my favorite defensive player in the entire draft. The best defensive player, as far as I'm concerned, in the draft. So I think this Cowboys defense is actually going to be great. I have the Cowboys absolutely scorching the earth this year. And everybody, everybody hates the Cowboys. Hey, let's make fun of them, yada, yada. This team is going to be absolutely insane this year. Like, this is going to be I'm thinking like 13 and it can't be 13-3. What, 13 and what, 4 now? 13 and 4.
One game got added to the schedule, Chris. One game.
Hey, this is why. Look, I took 3 maths in high school. One of them didn't count toward graduation. So, like, I struggled in pre-algebra. So don't hold it against me. That
must be why you hate analytics, then.
It's not, Mark. How dare you? It's not. That was a good joke, though.
What do we got left? What's on the show sheet?
Well, there's nothing on the show sheet left. We're good. Like, it's time for the after party, bro. Like, and speaking of the after party, again, for new listeners and those who actually forgot about the after parties, Mark and I like to do these after party shows sometimes, 15, 20 minutes long, and we just sort of kick back and talk about whatever comes to mind. Like it doesn't have to be fantasy related. Like it's really anything. We just sort of take our clothes off and I'm just kidding. But we pretty much say whatever we want. It's unfiltered, uncensored on the after party. So definitely stay tuned for that. Again, all of you, the Patreon subscribers, if you are gold members, you will get access to those after parties. If you are silver members, you will have to upgrade the membership to the gold. But trust me, for all the stuff you get with the gold, like it is definitely going to be worth it. And it's $5. Like, come on, it's $5, and you get all the great stuff with it. So you guys definitely keep an ear out for the after party on the Patreon website and on the app coming up here shortly. Mark, dude, this was a great, finally back. Like, this was the first show together in the 7 months, 8 months. It's got to be something like that. Like, this has
been a while.
This was just excellent. It's been a long time.
Absolutely. I had a blast. We'll be back next week for sure. Catch us on the after party on patreon.com/RotoBrosFF. Again, patreon.com/RotoBrosFF. So we're going to be heading to the after party.
patreon.com/RotoBros now. So it's easier for everybody.
Yeah.
So
okay. Even better.
There we go. And on Twitter,
even better.
You can find me on Twitter. You can obviously find me in the Discord, and Mark as well. You can find both of us on Twitter. I am at Wizard of Roto.
I'm at Mark Wemkin. I like to keep it simple. I'm not on Twitter as much as most guys in the fantasy football industry go. I have so much more fun in the Discord, and I'm not marketing here. I'm in the Discord every day. Chris is in the Discord every day. We've got a lot of guys in there that just love to talk football. We love to talk about love, life, relationships, beer, whiskey, whatever your niche is. It's whatever your niche is. Beer. Yeah, Josh is a beer guy. I'm a big whiskey guy. Josh is actually a whiskey guy now too. So him and I like to talk about bourbon a little bit, but we have a lot of fun. The DFS chat, if you're still playing DFS like MLB and NBA DFS, there is a lot going on in the DFS chat. So make sure you're jumping in that. But yeah, it's been real, Chris. We'll see you at the after party. Yeah, I like water, just so that's clear. But I also like talking about running backs. So we're going to be doing that next week. So definitely check that out. After party coming up next. You guys have a great week. We are out.